seeing people I've known for many years. I bumped into Usbongile outside. I've known Usbongile probably for, I don't know, when Paul was talking about how old the laws were, I realized that actually I've known Usbongile for way over 25 years for sure. I wasn't sure. And then this young man who's very rowdy in front, when he was known by another name, he changed the name somewhere along the line. When I met him a few years ago, he changed his name. When I was looking for guinea pigs to practice law with entertainment law, I just started doing entertainment law, and there was no black entertainment law in South Africa, they were all Jewish. A hairdresser, a friend of mine, when I used to have hair as well, suggested that I do entertainment law. And my first guinea pig was him and his brother and another pair of twins. They were called the twins. So those of you who are old in the tooth or been around a long time will know. So, sorry? Exactly, yes. So this young man is a former client of mine, and when he was joining the MK, he told me in the gym that, I'm joining MK. So when he saw I joined the UDM, he says, how? What happened? I said, no, you never recruited me, just told me you're joining MK, and I'm happy for you. So colleagues, I've mentioned that I come from the music industry. I've done a lot in the music industry. In fact, when Paul again was talking about 30 years, for me, there's some letters that the UDM has written, open letters to the president, that I drafted for my president, President Bantu Olomisa, and one of them was lamenting the fact that it has taken so many years. I mean, the last time we lobbied the TTI and lobbied government was when I was the leader. I was the CEO for ASAMI, Association of South African Music Industries, which today is called the Recording Industry of South Africa. I lobbied for local content. There was no local content at the time, zero. Somebody said, well, what about Claudi? Somebody was asking on my TikTok. I said, I don't know, Claudi was probably a baby when we did local content. He just, was trying to catch up a lot later. Issues of public performance rights, needle time, I lobbied for that. And then a protege of mine, Leslie Sidibe, who went to work for EMI afterwards, and now I think he's at Capasso. I recruited him as well from Vets. He then continued with that with the needle time. So when I came back into the country about 3 years ago, for me, I found it extremely sad that the industry has gotten worse. For me, when I look at you and I look at the arts and I look at the creatives, it's similar to when I go home to see my mother in the rural villages. It's almost like we've gone much back in time, which for me means we've got a tragedy on our hands. It's a very messy situation. If you could please move to the first slide for me, sir. You'll see that I'm talking about, my name is Mtunzi Mdwaba. Creative industries are defined as businesses with creativity at their heart, such as design, music, publishing, architecture, film and video, crafts, visual arts, fashion, TV and radio, advertising, literature, computer games, and the performing arts. There could be, one or two that I've left out. Next slide. You will see that the benefits of the creative industries are the fostering of income generation, which Paul covered a lot, and the MC covered as well. Umfowethu Mandla covered that a lot. Job creation, we talked about that, and the education that's built into it. And I'm, because we've got 10 minutes, initially I thought I had 20, but then when I saw the program, it's 10. I'm not going to cover some things, and hopefully one will get an opportunity to talk about them. But there's issues of the Sustainable Development Goals that also form part of my presentation, but I can talk about that separately should I get. Talk about your export earnings while promoting social inclusion. Social inclusion is very important. You guys are very important for social inclusion. Cultural diversity, absolutely great. But of course, we've got to know what we're talking about when we talk about cultural diversity, because we're a lost soul. We're lost souls. For us, our reference is colonization. Our reference is apartheid. We're a very traumatized people. It's one of the reasons why we would not recognize you. Because anybody who is not traumatized and anybody who respects who he is would know that you are the glue that brings us together. And as the glue that brings us together, you're also the way that will help for us to have therapy to deal with our very ugly past. But unfortunately, we are so colonized that we don't even know what colonization is. That's part of us that makes us behave in a strange way. You then have your human capital development. Now, again, I'm not going to say much because of time, but Paul covered that. And when you talk about training, it fits. When you talk about skills, it fits into that. And now as we move into the future of work, as we move into the artificial intelligence, as we move into the fourth industrial revolution, it becomes very important. There are two Jewish guys I met at Vets 3 weeks ago, Goldstack. One is Arthur Goldstack, one is Charles Goldstack. The Arthur Goldstack one is an expert in ICTs. The Charles Goldstack one is in the music industry. Apparently, he works with people like Asha and Alicia Keys and so on and so on, right? But the important thing for me that was quite interesting about white people, I mean, and I'm sure vets will be seeing this, but for me it struck me. They've taken these two guys, come back from the US to do a joint PhD on music and artificial intelligence. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are well equipped to do that here. But they will be doing that because they're connected. They know people in the right kind of places. And we need to find a way to break into that. Next slide. So there's the importance of intellectual property. You know, when Paul was talking about regulation, if I had time I would share something, but again I'll share it another day. I decided to play on to regulate or not to regulate, which is to be or not to be in Hamlet and Shakespeare. And I wrote that that is the question. Whether it is nobler to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous oppression, in Hamlet it says fortune, or take arms against the sea of corruption, in Hamlet it says troubles. And by this to say we end the troubles that our flesh is heir to die for the ruling party to care and recognize you for the first time. Hey, there's the map. So I wrote that as I was sitting there because I was moved. But when we talk about intellectual property, we talk about the current opportunity that you all have in terms of copyright. It's an opportunity. It's messed up, but it's an opportunity that Bill. Because you can't, in good conscience, have anybody talk about a clause called fair use. What is fair use? What kind of mischievous beast is fair use? How can you talk about fair use when we're talking about somebody who owns the rights? And this is actually the problem, even when I ran the music industry back in the day, because we also used to chase counterfeiters and people who were doing piracy and so on. You find that there's no respect for people who own music. There's an assumption that when you write music, it falls somewhere from the skies and everybody has a right to it. People can do as they please with it. So you can't have something called fair use. The owner, if it was my car, okay, which is tangible, if you own your car, no one can say I want fair use of your car. How is it possible you want fair use of my car? Or my bicycle? Or my husband? You want fair use? You can't have fair use. What does it mean you want fair use? You come through me, it's mine, right? So I think that's the best way of making examples, by the way, to people. Don't use your intangible to make an example because they don't understand it. Use the embodiment of a physical embodiment of something. The Performance Rights Amendment Bill is an opportunity. It's better than the copyright, but it also has problems in that as much as it helps performers to be able to charge, for example, for the duplication and the replication of performances, which is important, but you also must realize it's a problem if it's not harmonized with the copyright in terms of people in the music industry, because if you have an extra to perform in your video, then it means that extra also has to be paid every time. You can't afford to do that. That's not an owner of copyright. That was a person hired for the day to perform for you, who's the owner of the copyright. There's opportunities with a number of areas. One of the areas that the family of Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson and all those big people in the music industry helped. You will know that you've got protection of your music for 50 years beyond your death. We know that, right? Why are we not using this opportunity in South Africa when we've got a copyright and whatever to say we want to extend that? And South Africa and Africa wants to be an example. Make it 70, make it 80 years, because other people have already done it somewhere else. So that your families and your generations that follow you are able to benefit from that as we move on. Now, I have news for you though, Mpo. I don't know if Mpo is still in the room. I have news for you. So when you say there's no labor laws for your industry in South Africa, I just want to share something that might even make you cry. You are not recognized globally. I'll repeat that. So when I was sitting down, I remembered that I ran a conversation in Geneva on sports people, and then about a year later, there was a conversation on artists and the creative arts. Do you know who was there? Disney, Google, Hollywood something, the people that, of course, will be influencing your copyright, and why you've got the fun problem. Because you know you've got a fun problem in the copyright. And your fun would be Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, right? But globally, you are not recognized. So when you talk about work in the ILO is the mother of all work. That's where I was the leader of all employers in the world until 2021. You are not defined. So when we fight, and South Africa ratifies every convention that comes from the island. Whenever convention comes, South Africa ratifies. We are one of the best ratifiers, but one of the worst implementers. We don't implement in South Africa. We don't know what that means. Okay? Now you are much worse off. You are not even at policy level. You are not even there from a law, let alone monitoring, let alone thinking about implementation. So what we need to do is to take the war to the ILO. Now I know the ILO. I was the first African, by the way, to be a leader of employers in the ILO since 1919 when I went there in 2017. They are scared of controversy. It's the largest specialized agency of the United Nations. They don't want controversy. If you, South Africa, they respect South Africa because of our struggle credentials. If you can start a war here that says ILO, don't, South Africa will deal with it. We'll deal with South Africa because we'll all be in government and we're going to change things. But target it at base so that they start working hard, and I will be there. I know everyone in that space, right? To say, why is it that when you talk about decent work, why is it that when you talk about dignity, you don't think creatives deserve decent work and deserve dignity? That's absolute rubbish. And we must change that together. When you talk about the next slide, sorry, so that, because now I'm on extended time, I'm about to kick out, and he's not scared of me like he's scared of Mpo. What do creative industries desire? For me, that's the most important question today. We can all scream and be passionate, but we're not you. No one can do you better than you. It's not possible. No one can promise you anything better than what you can do for you. Anyone who does is lying, including this young brother here from the MK. Everyone who promises you something that you are not part of changing yourself is not going to help you. You help yourself first. That's what you do on an aeroplane. Those of you who've flown, you will know that when they tell you if something happens in the air, what do they say? You take the oxygen, put it on the mask, put it on you first, before you put it on anybody else. It's the first thing you do. Save you, build you, do you. Always do you. Default to you, not anybody else. Okay? So for me, it's an important question. How do creatives take charge of their lives? Beyonce says, power is taken. Power is never given. Take the power. Stop sitting and lamenting and complaining. Do it yourselves, and you start by doing it by starting on time, guys. You know, 30 years ago when I was in the industry, you're starting late, you're still starting late today. I'm sorry. You respect yourself, everybody respects you. My son is a musician, by the way. He's always on time. 5 minutes early, everybody talks about it. He's always on time, my boy. Because it's important, guys. We find it easy to respect you. What does a model for deserved wealth creation look like for you? I think hopefully as we have the workshops and the master this and all these other meetings we're going to have, can we talk about what does a model for deserved wealth, the deserved is very deliberate, for deserved wealth creation look like for us, for you? This next slide. How do the creatives see themselves? How do you see yourselves? And I've written the dependence or independence. What do you want? You want somebody to always call the shots in your lives? Why? And when you know you are so talented, you know you are so gifted, you know you lift us when we dance, you know that when we get to airports and people do things, the Springboks wins. What plays first? Music. Every time people want to be seen, they want to take your autographs and say, I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so. And then what do they do for you? Zero. Please, wake up. They want to take, wake up.
At 9.3, we talk about youth are the future leaders of South Africa, that they remain sidelined. It's important. We need to construct things. And last, the final slide. What is required? understanding of creative industries is very important. You know, I used to have clients back in the day. I mean, I used to represent Umatosa of Bumchaka, represent Sipoku Mete, represented the guy used to call me Mlungo Mnyama, Chabukanyile. And all these people, for me as my clients, I used to say to them, you know, I can only represent you if you tell me what it is you want me to do for you. I can tell you what your rights are, but you need to tell me what you want and what your value is. And there's no good that you go to general practitioners who don't know the expertise of your industry. If you go to a general practitioner who's used to dealing with coughs and other ailments, they're not going to help you when you've got a specialized problem. Intellectual property appreciation is important because your industry is intellectual property, nothing else. Without an understanding of intellectual property, people can't help you. Nobody can help you. Authenticity and respect for the arts is important. Authenticity is important. If you are authentic, you'll respect the arts because you respect the people that play a role in the arts. And then the last one is whatever happens. The budget, for example, of Gauteng, for me who's a Gauteng premier candidate, is 165 billion. Now, health and education is the majority of that budget. Economic development is a very small section of the budget. What is very clear as we move forward is that should I be in government, should I be voted for me, I would want to reprioritize that budget and look at it different, because I don't understand why economic development is a small piece like this. Because if it's a small piece like this, and currently you're getting 4 million, and people are applying 80 million in applications, and your allocation is 4, you're never going to increase that 4 million to anything else, and that's absurd. It's completely ridiculous. I thank you, MC, for being kind. I end there.